Okay, here we are, October 2nd, year 2020. And yeah, it looks like Mr. President's got the COVID 19. So I put a little video on that. Um, and so today we're going to go over three letters. Seneca, these three letters are not published in this book. So this book would, if they published all the letters, it'd probably be, like I said, about twice as thick as it is. I mean, but it's a paper shortage back in 1969. Uh, so this letter 66 is a long one. Actually, it's the longest letter so far. It's actually like 8 pages almost. So we're going to go through this, and this is titled "In Various Aspects of Virtue." Letter 66. And so my first keynote I found here, after reading through it, mortal things, Seneca says, mortal things decay, fall, are worn out, grow up, are exhausted, and replenished. So like that bird that had a bird that died nearby, and it's now being replenished. Actually, probably decaying, but it's replenishing the tree, probably replenishing a bunch of ants. Uh, let's see here. Reason, however, is nothing else than a portion of the divine spirit, set in the human body. If reason is divine and the good in no case lacks reason, then the good in every case is divine. This is kind of weird because I was looking at this footnote 6 here, and it says, it's also defined. Oh, okay, well, absolute truth. I was thinking a different footnote. Um, okay, so Seneca says here, joy and a brave, unyielding endurance of torture are equal goods, for in both there is the same greatness of soul, relaxed and cheerful in the one case, and the other combative and braced for action. So this is a huge paradox that Seneca's talking about. Um, that yeah, how can you have joy on one hand and torture on the other be equal goods or virtues? So kind of go back to like what I said earlier. I think what Seneca's trying to get at, and I personally don't like torture, and I'm sure you don't like torture. I didn't see the bird I saw that died the other day. I kind of felt it was being tortured by the black cat because you can see the cat was just hitting, and the poor bird was like shaking, and I kind of feel terrible about it still, but it's nature. Um, but what Seneca's saying here, and what I've kind of said in other videos is, you know, if you look at evolution, it's like we evolved to suffer. We evolved to have pain. We evolved to have like if I pinch my hand, I want pain to come here because it tells me information that hey, okay, I gotta stop whatever's causing the pain, or it's information that's survival. It's necessary for survival. Um, and so this is where I think Seneca's getting at is that it's kind of like you get the idiot light in your car. Like the idiot light comes on, and the car is actually it's like feeling it's the designer of the car wants the driver of the car to realize the car's feeling pain. Okay, because you may not have enough oil in your engine. You may not It's in my case of my car, it's polluting too much or something. But uh, and then like another gauge in my car is like a temperature gauge, and I know if it stays between the 2 and the L, which is kind of like where the gears are with the gear shifting. But that's how because this is an analog gauge, it doesn't have any significant demarcations on it. But I always look at it's like normal between 2 and the L is the temperature. But when I see the temperature go up, then I know it's like the coolant's it's low in coolant, so it's feeling pain. And without that pain and suffering, I wouldn't stop my car and pull over and add coolant. And so what would happen is my engine would end up blowing a rod and dying, just like our healthcare system, where the person's dying, they wait until they'd ignore the temperature gauge if they had no health insurance, so they just die instead of survive. Welcome to America's healthcare system, uh, which is a for-profit capitalism system, which to me is like fascist. Fascist. Uh, okay, so but anyways, what Seneca is saying is that yeah, I mean that's what I think he's getting at is pain is like a distorted signal of love. It's just it's it's kind of like it's like a really bright light that shines right in you. Like it's like I can't see anymore, right? So that's when you're overwhelmed when you have a lot of pain. When you have so much pain that uh, like I often like to put a pain on the scale from 0 to 10. Okay, 0 means you're actually probably in a pleasure mode, but 0 is you just don't feel anything. Just put it that way. You don't no pain. But then there's like 5. You got some. You're at a, a definitely significant pain level. And if you're at 9, you're like one away from becoming unconscious. If you're at 10, you're unconscious. You have so much pain. Your arms probably falling off. You're in shock. And it's that's unconscious. It's level 10 is like saturation. I think that's the kind of like the limit. There's probably a human limit of pain because you can only put so much voltage on the nerves to before the nerves saturate, and so they can't. It's kind of like a circuit breaker. That going unconscious is like blowing a fuse on your operating system. Uh, and so yeah, that's the most extreme form of pain is just shutdown. I think the that poor bird was probably. It's like when I've had the breath knocked out of me, it's like you can't move. It's like you're immobile. Have you ever had your breath knocked out, or you could fall down and you're on the ground and you can't breathe, you can't move, just like temporarily immobile? And so that's kind of like where that bird was. If you saw the video, the bird was temporarily immobile. It's just like it's in autopilot. Just like when you're throwing up, you're vomiting. You're vomiting. It's like total autopilot. So you almost like you're just like observing yourself. You're almost not even connected to yourself in a sense. Uh, but what Seneca is saying is just, I think I mean, that bird didn't survive, obviously. Uh, the animals that do survive would find a ways out of the situation. If that bird, might have been too overwhelmed by its pain, it wasn't able to fly because the pain signals on the wings might have been so high that it just couldn't move. Uh, but maybe another bird that took joy in that pain might have actually been able to fly away and escape the cat from killing it. So I can see if you understood the survival aspect of all your ancestors prior to your existence survived somehow. A lot of them probably escaped cats, and the ones that escaped cats ended up reproducing, and the ones that didn't Well, it didn't. So over enough time, if like this scenario happened in my backyard over and over again for millions of years, what will happen is the bird that the birds will be much more wary of cats, for one, and another thing is they may overcome their pain signals and realize, oh, this is a pain signal, I'm gonna fly away. Just a pain signal on my wing, and I'm gonna fly away anyways because I have bigger problem because I may be eaten by a cat and ants on top of it. So so that's where I can kind of see how Seneca is trying to teach is that don't run away from your pain. Don't fear your pain. I mean, just recognize your pain as love, and it's trying to keep you alive. And if you got to get somewhere, you got to get somewhere. Okay, and I don't care how the fuck painful it is. Sometimes you have to do something in spite of your extreme pain. But don't run away from your pain because then you're not looking at what's going on. It's like I said, the temperature gauge. If I see a temperature gauge going up, I'm not gonna look away from it and just assume it's not going up. I'm gonna fucking take care of it. So it's like I pull over and I open the hood and I add coolant. Uh, so and then that'll help correct the problem. Ideally, you'd try to figure out more details of that, you know, but if I have to get away, then I can get away from something. Like if there's a lion chasing after me, if you're in the jungle and you have a jeep and your jeep temperature gauge goes way up and look at lions all over the place, and you're just waiting for the lions to leave before you add coolant. Okay, that's the interesting problem. How would you solve that dilemma? Uh, I mean, you want to have a weapon. Reminds me of a story of a sailor. Oh, I forget his name. Knox or something. He was out in the ocean. He was like in a round the world race, and he was encountering a shark, and the shark was going to kill him. And I'm not sure why he. I guess he had to repair something, maybe in a boat or something. But he ended up having to shoot the shark. Huh. I mean, sharks are endangered, kind of. I guess I don't know if they are or not. I mean, but he, he's trying to survive, and he had to shoot a shark. He was a solo sailor. He was on his own. So I don't know if he was fishing or trying to. I think he was trying to make a repair on his boat. He had to go outside or something. Otherwise, why would he shoot him? I don't know why he'd shoot the shark, but uh, so I'm getting off track here, but yeah, it's just it's survival, and I think it's essential survival skill to be able to be able to not run away from your pain and your suffering, torture, your undesirable signals, but to embrace them and understand them, to gauge them, and to instead of looking at the reflection of what's going on, is figure out what the source of the reflection is. Get to the details. Um, so yeah, so I'm getting off track here a little bit, but anyways, so yeah, joy and a brave, unyielding endurance of torture are equal good. So it's like, yeah, maybe if that bird could have overcome its torture situation, it might have been able to survive. Uh, but I don't know. Maybe there's not that many. I guess there's just a lot of birds like that. I mean, maybe it was just time to go. Maybe it was an older bird. I can't tell the difference between an old bird and a young bird. I don't know how old that bird was. It looked pretty young, so I don't know. Uh, the bird I'm talking about is in a prior video. You can see the video I had to tell you not to watch. Don't watch it if you're sensitive. Okay, so next keynote here: tranquility, simplicity, generosity, constancy, equanimity, endurance. These are virtues that Seneca's talking about. For underlying them all is the single virtue, that which renders the soul straight and unswerving. Uh, yeah, so like if I'm ever sick and like I'm throwing up or something like that, and it's a really weird thing because like the last time I threw up, which was quite a while. Actually, it wasn't too long ago. It was January. Might have been a coronavirus. I don't know. But it was weird because I'm like going, that's autopilot. It's like that's just totally automatic. It's like there's a trigger mechanism. I know there was definitely a triggering mechanism. A little bit too personal for me to want to talk about, but yeah, there's a triggering mechanism. And once that trigger mechanism went on, and boom, autopilot turns on, and they're like, okay, now I'm throwing up, and I'm kind of looking at it like this is weird. It's like an inverse orgasm. It's like it's totally bizarre. It's almost more powerful than orgasm because it's like it's just in the reverse direction. You're reversing. It's a reversing pump. Essentially, the stomach is doing a reversing pump operation. Most of the time, it goes forward and slow, but I was going in reverse. Uh, Fasting helped me with that. So I fasted after that and felt much better. This was in January. Um, so uh, Seneca is saying here, what then, you say, if is there no difference between joy and unyielding endurance of pain? None at all, as regards the virtues themselves. Very great, however, in the circumstances in which either of these two virtues is displayed. In one case, there is natural relaxation and loosening the soul. In the other case, is unnatural pain. Hence, these circumstances between which a great distinction can be drawn belong to the category of indifferent things. But the virtue shown in each case is equal. Um, the weird thing about the word nature, natural, is it's just kind of a funny word because, in essence, everything is nature, natural. The only thing that's not nature, not natural, is human created. But the problem with that, the paradox to that, is we humans are also part of nature. So we can't deny the fact that because we're the result of nature. So, but the common language of nature is not human, but because I pain. So he's saying that unnatural pain. So I'm basically saying that the pain is actually natural. Pain is an evolutionary survival signal, and it's rough, and you know it's not like a clear image. You feel pain and suffering for a reason. The key is to find out why, how, what's causing it, and making corrections. Okay, so Seneca is saying that the equal. Okay, virtue is not changed by the matter with which it deals. If the matter is hard and stubborn, it does not make the virtue worse. Make sure you can see this here. If pleasant and joyous, it does not make it better. Therefore, virtue necessarily remains equal. For in each case, what is done with equal uprightness, with equal wisdom, and with equal honor. Hence, the states of goodness involved are equal, and it is impossible for a man to transcend these states of goodness by conducting himself better, either the one man in his joy or the other amid his suffering, and two goods neither of which can possibly be better or equal. For things which are extrinsic to virtue can either diminish or increase virtue, then that which is honorable ceases to be the only good. Okay, and then Seneca says, no act is honorable that is done by an unwilling agent that is compulsory. Even if every honorable act is voluntary, allow it with reluctance, complaints, cowardice, or fear, and it loses its best characteristics, self-approval. That which is not free cannot be honorable, for fear means slavery. The honorable is wholly free from anxiety and is calm. It is ever, if it ever objects, laments, or regards anything as an evil, it becomes subject to disturbance and begins to flounder about and make great confusion. It kind of reminds me of the bird when we're shaking. It was probably confused as to what to do, and probably in a profound amount of fear and panic. If birds have fear and panic, which I think they probably do. When a man is about to do something honorable, he should not regard any obstacles as evil, even though he regard them as inconvenient. But he should will to the deed and do it willingly. For every honorable act is done without commands or compulsion. It is unalloyed and contains no admixture of evil. Instead, I was thinking if that bird survived, it probably would have learned a profound lesson. You know, about black cats and about pain and suffering, and it probably would have made it a stronger, better, smarter bird if the bird survived. Didn't survive though. Seneca here is saying, I'm reading a lot because seems to be a lot of interesting stuff here. So you can see, obviously, I've highlighted a lot, which is maybe boring you to death. You can always zoom forward in the video. It's a great thing about YouTube is you can just skip over crap, all this crap that I'm saying. Uh, but anyways, if you're interested, you're welcome to follow along. Are you trying to make us believe, Seneca is saying, are you trying to make us believe it does not matter whether a man feels joy or whether he lies upon the rack and tires out of his torture? Might say answer. Epicurus also maintains that the wise man, though he is being burned in the bowl of Phalaris, God, imagine that being burned. Why cry out, displeasant and concerns not me not at all? I think at that point your signaling system from the nerves would be saturated, and so it's possible that you could say that doesn't concern me at all. Why need you wonder if I maintain that he who reclines at a banquet and the victim who stoutly withstands torture possess equal goods? When Epicurus maintains a thing that is harder to believe, namely that it is pleasant to be roasted in this way. Kind of reminds me of initiation in Boy Scouts. When I was a Boy Scout, you'd be blindfolded. Probably they wouldn't nowadays. They probably wouldn't do it to any kids because just people are kind of soft nowadays. Unfortunately, not as stoic as we used to be. But I had a Boy Scout initiation in the Superstition Mountains, and one of the things that was kind of fun. It was nighttime. There's a big campfire, and they take you away and they blindfold you, and then they carry you. You're gonna get your foot burned, and it's like I just kept saying. I was young then. I was probably only like I don't know, probably like 10 years old, maybe 11 years old. And yeah, they carried me, and then they say to bring my foot next to the fire, and I can't see, but I can feel the heat of the fire a little bit. And then they smash your foot. It actually was dry ice, but I kept saying, "Yeah, I want my foot to be burned." It just reminds me of this. Then I didn't burn my foot off. I still got my foot. You can see my foot's right here. My foot's missing. No, I still have my foot. Uh, but this just kind of reminds me of it. This is kind of interesting. It's, uh, it was kind of like it's to teach a little bit of stoicism in a sense. I miss that. I mean, he's a good leader, the troop leader. I mean, unfortunately, he passed away, as we all do. Um, he passed away probably not in a particularly pleasant way, but not going to go there. Talk about that right now. But so Seneca is saying, but the reply which I do make is that there is great difference between joy and pain. If I am asked to choose, I shall seek the former and avoid the later. The former is according to nature, the later contrary to it. So long as they are rated by this standard, there is a great gulf between, but with it comes to a question of the virtue involved. Virtue in each case is the same, whether it comes through joy or through sorrow, through torture or whatever you say. Vexation and pain and other inconvenience are of no consequence, for they are overcome by virtue. So this goes back to my what I think Seneca is getting at is it's kind of like I said, my metaphor. It's just you got these gauges in your craft, your vessel or ship or vehicle, or whatever you're driving. You got signaling systems, and whenever those signaling systems activate, those are pain signals. It's suffering, but I mean, your head, you can just look away if you want to and not give a fuck about it, but it's going to probably cost you more than actually embrace it and find out what the fuck is wrong. That way you can figure out, and correct everything, correct your problems. And that's virtue. Because it's it's just your operation. The system is designed that way so that you can operate it. Otherwise, there would be no design for a temperature gauge. There would be no design for an engine light, idiot light, or whatever you want to call it. There'd be no design. There would be no reason for an RPM gauge. If your RPM shot way off, revolutions per minute gauge. Okay, so um, and so yeah, Seneca is saying that the, his joy and the suffering are interrelated, and like especially if you take joy in solving problems, if it's your calling, those gauges are actually beautiful to you because it helps you survive. Just like when Neil Armstrong was landing on the moon, he was watching the temperature, I mean the fuel gauge, and it's like going down only because he was very well connected to that fuel gauge. And the fuel gauge is like a pain signal because if it goes down to zero, you could die. So you gotta be very lovingly connected to that gauge to survive and land on the moon without it running out of gas. Okay, and otherwise you could die. Actually, the backup plan probably would have been to initiate the separation stage from lunar module, which allowed them to escape. Anyways, so that's their backup plan probably. They had a lot of backup plans, by the way. After Ed White, Gus Grissom, and Roger Shaft died in Apollo 1, they realized that hey, we gotta have a fucking good design here because we don't want to fuck this up again. So that's how they figured it out. I mean, they Ed White, Gus Grissom, and Roger Shaft were really made Apollo possible to succeed because I mean they died, they were sacrificed, but uh, and so the pain that all those backup plans and those signaling systems is the love that they carried forward. So it's to allow us to go farther, and so that's virtue. I guess. So Seneca is saying, just as the brightness of the sun dims all lesser lights, so virtue, by its own greatness, shatters and overwhelms all pains, annoyances, and wrongs. And wherever its radiance reaches, all lights which shine without the help of virtue are extinguished, and inconveniences which they come in contact with virtue play no more important a part than does a storm cloud at sea. So yeah, like another example of pain and suffering is the signals that the lunar module experienced when it was coming about to land on the moon. And one of them was a 1201 alarm, 1202 alarm. What happened was computer system was getting overwhelmed by because Buzz Aldrin left the rendezvous radar on, which is how to get back to the command service module by Michael Collins was, and because he left that on, the computer got overloaded. And but the beautiful thing about it was that you have a team of like 400,000 people helping out, and on the ground, they actually did a ground test for that particular scenario, that particular alarm, before they knew that that pain signal was just a distorted reflection of the situation, because they knew that what the critical priorities were, and those are being continued even though the alarm was spewed out, because they tested it. And they tested it before, and so that's they say can go for landing. And so yeah, it's incredible, quite incredible. Um, this video may be a little choppy because I'm running a background program right now. I'm running a backup system, so it's not a 1201 alarm or anything like that. But it's just I'm not flying a spacecraft, so. But that's just kind of it's another example of how pain and suffering, you know, from Ed White, Gus Grissom, Roger Shaft, the pain that they suffered, not being able to breathe inside Apollo 1 because of the fire, and not being able to escape. Those painful lessons evolved into the higher missions and the later missions, and and the scrutiny, the level of certification was so much superior after that. So that's the beauty that comes out of the tragedy is that uh, after stumbling the steps backwards in Apollo 1, figured out how to make the small steps forward to do the giant leap. And the giant leap was really Apollo 8. Okay, not because Apollo 8, mission 8 was a giant leap from the Earth to the Moon, which is a very bold. I mean, it's probably one of the biggest fucking bold mission ever because I mean, fucking left the Earth, and that was the first time fucking Homo sapiens left the Earth. I mean, ever. I never recorded history unless there's like some ancient alien civilization or ancient civilization that we had that had the technology, which is unlikely. So, anyways, yeah, the Apollo 8 astronauts were probably the boldest human beings on Earth, and I mean that was the true giant leap. And I think that's what Neil Armstrong was pointing out when his first words when he walked on the moon is small step for man. He left out the word a little bit unintentionally. A man, giant leap for mankind. And but those small steps, Apollo 8 was a big small step, so to speak. But yeah, it's just pretty amazing. I got a whole book on that, which I want to read. I haven't read yet. But, okay, a couple books. It's not enough time to read everything, but so let me continue here where I left off. If I can remember where I left off, let's see, vexation and pain and other inconvenience are of no consequence, for they are overcome by virtue. Yeah, I read this part. Yeah, because that's so. Virtue is the transcendence of the paradox. It's like a yin and yang, transcending the yin and yang paradox, two opposites. And it's also, yeah, it's transcendence. How to transcend joy versus torture. I mean, that's a big, incredible paradox to try to transcend. Okay, so Seneca says this can be proved to you by the fact that the good man will hasten hesitantly to any noble deed, even though he be confronted by the hangman, the torturer, and the stake. He will persist, regarding not what he must suffer, but what he must do, and he will entrust himself as readily to an honorable deed as he would to a good man. He will consider it advantageous to himself, safe, perpetuous, and he will hold the same view concerning an honorable deed, even though it be fraught with sorrow and hardship, as concerning a good man who is poor or wasting away in exile. Come now, contrast a good man who is rolling in wealth, the man who has nothing except that in himself he has all things. They will be equally good, though they experience unequal fortune. The same standard, as I remarked, is to be applied to things as well as to men. Virtue is just as praiseworthy as it is dwells in a sound and free body, as in one which is sickly or in bondage. Therefore, as regards your own virtue also, you will not praise it any more if fortune has favored it by granting you a sound body than if fortune has endowed you with a body that is crippled in some member, since that would mean rating a master low because he is dressed like a slave. For all those things over which chance holds sways our chattels, money, person, position, they are weak, shifting, prone to perish, and of uncertain tenure. On the other hand, the works of virtue are free and unsubdued, neither more worthy to be sought when fortune treats them kindly, nor less worthy when any adversity weighs upon them. Um, yeah, so I mean, I look at the first part, kind of like I think one of the Apollo 1 astronauts has recognized the problem of the wiring, and, but didn't want to lose his position as the astronaut by complaining about it. Which really, it makes me kind of wonder. I mean, the mistake, uh, if he did actually complain about it, would we have actually made it to the moon in a sense? This is, you don't know, but, uh, if there's another question is if Apollo 1 never happened, in other words, if Apollo 1 fire didn't occur, would we have made it to the moon? And what might have happened, I'm just purely speculating, but what might have happened is we might have had three astronauts die in the moon or die on the way to the moon. Uh, and that's where we would have had to learn the lesson, which would have been probably even more painful of a lesson, virtuous lesson about safety and reliability, quality control. Uh, it's kind of like makes me think about safety engineers. They kind of they'll get blamed if people die, and they'll get blamed if people don't die. In other words, it's like a no-win position because you're just yeah. That's pretty much the truth. Is the safety engineers probably have the least favorable or least appreciated job because either one or two things happen: either people die or get injured, or people survive. I don't mean to flip you off here, but people fucking survive, but they're blaming the safety engineer for delaying the project. Uh, So either they'll blame the safety engineer for letting people die, or they blame the safety engineer for delaying the project. So it's like you can't win either way as a safety engineer. So it's a kind of interesting paradox. But I think like after Apollo 1, the safety engineers will probably become gods. I mean, not gods, but I mean, pretty much like making a robust system so that we can do great things. And that's what safety engineer does. But like I said, it's probably the hardest engineering position there is to be safety engineer because like I said, you're blamed if people die, and you're blamed for delaying the project if people don't die. And, that's one thing Gene Cernan said, the Apollo 17 astronaut, the last man on the moon. He basically said, Apollo 1, they were uh, Apollo 1. It was go fever. They just hate. It's kind of like the idea haste makes waste. Well, yeah, haste killed 3 astronauts basically. They hastily go about doing something, trying to rush. You got to pace yourself. It reminds me like when I was in track. I would run a race, and I ran a 400-meter race as if I was running 200 meters, and I just burned out. It's like I hit a brick wall. I could not. I came in last place because I ran. And even my coach was yelling at me to slow down. And I was just like, I was so excited that I made it to state. The it's like you don't want something too much because you want it too much, you won't get it. It's just another race, but if I keep it as like just another race, and I think that's kind of like a lesson I learned is you train your ass off to a point, all right, and then to the point once you trained your ass off, you train so fucking hard, and once you hit that point, and then the actual position or the actual event just before like a day before the event, it's like I don't give a fuck anymore. That's when you do fucking well. Is when you don't give a fuck what happens. You do really fucking well that way. Cause that's what I kind of learned from that is if you train your ass like mad till the day before, and the day before don't give a fuck. Well, you give a little bit of fuck, but that's when you have to say I don't give a fuck anymore. Because that's when you do well. Uh, it's a paradox. It's a big paradox, but um, it allows you to do well. It's kind of like when I take a test. It's like I don't give a fuck anymore. It's like either I know it or I don't. So I don't care. Why should I care? There's no reason to care. So that's how that's where your training pays off. It's like you either trained well enough for something or fuck it, you didn't train good enough. So it's your own fault. I don't mean to be harsh here, but that's just basically kind of how I see it. Is you do the best you can in your training, and that's all you can do. You can't do more than that. You just do the best you can and accept what you have been able to do, and just let it go after that. Once the time comes. But I kind of mean to get way off topic here, but bored everybody to death. I'll be the only one that watches this video. Maybe I don't know. Uh, Cursing philosophy. Okay, so Seneca here says if all the virtues are by nature equal, the 3 varieties of goods are equal. This is what I mean. There is an equality between feeling joy with self control and suffering pain with self control. The joy is the one case. one case does not surpass, and the other the steadfastness of soul that gulps down the groan. When the victim is in the clutches of the torture, goods or the first kind are desirable, while those of the second are worthy of admiration. In each case, they are none the less equal because whatever inconvenience attaches to the later is compensated by the qualities of the good, which is much greater. Any man who believes them to be unequal is turning his gaze away from the virtues themselves and is surveying mere eternal externals, kind of like looking away from the gauges. True goods have the same weight and the same width. The spurious sort contain much emptiness. Hence, when they are weighed in the balance, they are found wanting, although they look imposing and grand to the gaze. Um, yeah, I'm just thinking when I'm reading the first part of this about torture, I'm just thinking of the poor bird that was being tortured by the cat a couple days ago. Uh, I mean, it's hard to see any good in that. You know, it's very hard to see good in the suffering of a poor little animal. Um, but I sensed that when I was looking at that poor bird, in my mind, I see it's probably on autopilot right now. Just like when I throw up or something like that, it's like autopilot. Yeah, when you're in such a you know weird situation like that, which only happens once for the bird, that only die once, and Seneca paradoxically is saying it's the torture and the joy are an equal virtue. So it's kind of like the bird's looking at his instrumentation. You know, the instrumentation is just saying, "Oh, it's like I got all kinds of damage report signals. I can't take off. I can't escape." You know, so it kind of looks away, and maybe it's probably why it died because it may have looked away from the gauges, and all those pain signals didn't didn't embrace them. Said, "Oh, I need to take off." So it's shaking. I could tell it wasn't sure. I couldn't decide whether it wanted to try to fly away or survive, and I can imagine that it's probably pretty close to 50-50 that birds that survived the last millions of years, half of them probably survived by playing dead. The other half may have survived by taking off. And then this particular gene, the bird, may have was biased towards the not taking off. Um, and so, but what Seneca's saying is it's an equal joy of the torture and of joy, or the equal virtue, joy and torture, which is it's hard to understand, but I can kind of see it is the bird was probably kind of looking away from the gauges and just not embracing. Like if it eyes are open, it might have saw a cat and said, "Oh, but the cat was a certain distance." But if the bird knew like the composure of the cat before it kills the bird, because I've learned this cat quite a bit. I've hanged around. The cat has just programmed in its DNA of attack mode, and you can tell. You tell when a cat is ready to strike because it kind of tightens its muscles up and lowers its body so that it can jump. And when the bird was struggling, the cat wasn't doing that. The cat was very relaxed. It wasn't in an attack mode. It was kind of like in a play mode, but its paws were kind of close by, ready to strike. Strike. But it strikes when if the bird used all its energy, all its remaining energy, just to take off, try to fly somewhere, anywhere, it might have survived. I really think it might have had a chance. But its wings may have been totally broken. Might have been the pain signal was that the structural hardware of the wings or the bones were broken, maybe, and so it didn't have the ability to fly. But or some yeah, so never don't really know. Can't do an MRI on the bird to find out, but that would be kind of interesting scientific study. But I'm not interested in torturing animals. But uh, okay. So let me read on here. Seneca is saying, "Yes, my dear Dosilius, the good which true reason approves is solid and everlasting. It strengthens the spirit and exalts it, so that it will always be in the heights. But those things which are thoughtlessly praised and are goods in the opinion of the mob merely puffs us up with empty joy. And again, those things which are feared as if they were evils merely inspire trepidation in men's minds. For the mind is disturbed by the semblance of danger, just as animals are disturbed." I was talking about the bird earlier. Hence, it is without reason that both these things distract and sting the spirit. One is not worthy of joy, nor the other of fear. It is reason alone that is unchangeable, that holds fast to its decisions. For reason is not a slave to the senses, but a ruler over them. So this goes back to what I was saying. It's like the bird is shaking. It's not looking at its sensor systems anymore. It's like and reason is the sense is looking at your gauges, looking at your environment. Being observing. Stabilizing your situation, but you're thinking about what you're going to do. You're observing instead of the bird like stopped shaking. It probably would have survived because the shaking movement is what you know ignited the cat's attack. And if it stopped moving completely, it didn't even shake anymore. It just stopped moving. In other words, play dead more realistically playing dead. It might have survived. Okay, uh, and that's reason. So if the bird could have done that, I see what happened is it seems like it's all its evolutionary history was didn't have a clear bias either way of leaving or fight or flight. And or basically freeze, total frozen. Don't freeze to the point where the cat wouldn't be able to pick up signals up. It wouldn't entice the cat because if the bird didn't move at all, the cat would not have attacked. And I could see the bird was like shaking and breathing really. It could tell it was breathing really fast. So it's like its whole. But if it had a stoic sense, it might have been able to control its breathing and just play total dead, like a monk, you know. And that would have caused the cat to kind of like, so the bird's dead, and I'm not gonna play with it anymore because it's not interesting anymore. Um, so that's what reason is the bird could reason to stop, to think, to observe, without looking. I mean, without moving anything, observe, okay, and then plan. At some point it's got to take action when it's clear. But if it played totally dead during the whole time, it might have survived too. You know, but it looked to me like it was just on the edge of couldn't decide whether to fly out or to freeze. And so that's why it's kind of reminds me of sailing. It's better to make a quick decision than no decision at all. I mean, than to be indeterminate. Uh, Reminds me of another book called Thinking Fast and Slow. It's another interesting book. Um, but yeah, I would have survived. Might have been able to survive. Uh, And that's what reason is. But it's a bird brain, so the bird probably doesn't have a whole lot of neurons there to figure that out. All it has is just its ancestral hard coded sequences, which wasn't enough to survive. Um, but here, Seneca, who has a bigger brain than a bird, I'm told, is is recognizing that reason is how you can kind of how you can survive. It's all virtues are reasons. Okay, so here Seneca is saying, as reason is, so also are actions. Therefore, all actions are equal. For since they resemble reason, they also resemble each other. Moreover, I hold that actions are equal to each other insofar as they are honorable and right actions. There will be, of course, great differences according as material varies, as it becomes now broader, now narrow, now glorious, and now base, now manifold in scope, and now limited. However, which is best in all these cases is equal, they are all honorable. Same way with all good men, and so far they are all good and all equal. I won't read through the details there. You're welcome to read the whole letter here. I just kind of like to go where I kind of start here and say, so Seneca says, no good is without reason, and reason is in accordance with nature. So, so I look at it, yeah, it's just like if you got a lot of pain, suffering, your reason is looking at your signaling, observing signaling systems, and what are the reasons behind those signals, and what do we do? Okay, Seneca here says here, what then, you ask, is the reason? It is copying nature, and what you say is the greatest good that man can possess. It is to conduct oneself according to what nature wills. There is no doubt, says the objector, that peace affords more happiness than it has not been assailed than when it has been recovered at the cost of great slaughter. There is no doubt also, he continues, that health which has not been impaired affords more happiness than health which has been restored to soundness by means of force. As it were, and by enduring of suffering after serious illnesses that threaten life itself. And similarly, there will be no doubt that joy is a greater good than a soul's struggle to endure to the bitter end the torments of wounds or burning at the stake. That's interesting what he's saying there. I mean, depending on what there may not be such thing as a soul, but to say if there is a soul, uh, he's basically saying if you died a painful death, it creates a greater good or something like that. And it's kind of hard to understand that, but happiness, health. He's just basically saying here is this. I mean, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. That idea. But of course, if you've been to steel beam X number of times, what doesn't kill the steel beam will break the beam. So, but the difference with us life forms, which is great, is we have adaptability. So it is generally true that just like if you lift weights, you build strength. What doesn't kill your muscles strengthens you. Like I lifted weights, and one time I overdid it, and it didn't kill me, but it almost did. Felt like it would have killed me a couple days later after swelling. uh, but what probably happens after that for is the system. If it doesn't kill the system, it strengthens it. So it's kind of like if you have wings of an aircraft. Boeing, I hope Boeing still does this. I kind of lost. I used to kind of really like respect Boeing, but after the 737 Max situation, I'm not really. It's hard for me to appreciate. Boeing's credibility has basically gone down the drain. But, anyways, when Boeing was a great company, which I don't feel like it is right now, because it's being run by business people. Uh, but I think they still do this now. Is the wings when a new aircraft they test the wings, okay, and part of that testing is a destructive test, and what they do is they basically test the maximum torque on the wings, and they just bend them up and down until you get to a point where it pops, it breaks, and that's like the bone breaking, and that's what the plane would crash and everybody die. But they test that to the limit, to the destructive test, and that's the difference between humans. A little bit difference, not a lot, but a little bit difference between humans is at least if you break your arm or break your back, if you break maybe a certain portion of the back, it might be able to recover, may not be able to recover. Like, because in the back you have bones and you have cartridges, and a little cartridge between the bones, or a disc between the bones, and if you apply too much force on your back, you're going to crush the disc, and the disc may actually, after being crushed enough, may start swelling, and that swelling may push into the spinal cord. That's what happened to me. I compressed my back so much that the disc, after a little while, started expanding from swelling. Most likely, this is what happened. I did an MRI machine. I could see what definitely seemed to, or definitely, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a MRI radiologist, but uh, I could see it makes total sense to me that if there's some kind of swelling that basically pinches the nerve, and it could shut you down completely. It could be so painful. Um, but if you do that and you don't destroy your cartridge, like if the cartridge didn't burst, thankfully, and it may swell a lot to the point where it pushes on the spinal cord and shuts you down because it's so painful. But then after a while, it may recover and it may have an adaptive process where it actually makes it a little bit stronger. But if I broke my bones, my bone, doesn't heal as easily. Uh, but even bones do heal. A lot of times they have to mend them together. But there's a point to which won't heal anymore, and so like a wing of an aircraft, it doesn't have any healing capabilities. Um, and so when you bend the wings too much and you ignore the structural factors, if you just assume that the skin is strong enough to hold it, or skin like a muscle or something, it's going to hold it, and the muscle gets stronger and you can push farther. But pretty soon you start going to the structural elements, and then you get really fucked up. And so that's what happened to me. Uh, I was following a book called Body by Science, which I do not recommend you read. I don't recommend you read it because this medical doctor took advice from another guy who I talked about in an earlier video, and I'm not going to mention the guy's name. Uh, but this guy thought he was a genius, I guess, and so he tells everybody he's a genius, and then everybody kind of follows him, and then everybody thinks they know what they're doing, which is like garbage in, garbage out, and you end up not having a body by science, but you have a body by destruction. Uh, so so even I mean you gotta be critical of everything. Actually, I was warned, and I should have heeded the warning by a very close person to me, and I regret not listening to someone I love. Give me a fair warning. Somebody who I should have trusted. Uh, But it's all interesting stuff. I mean, uh, I'm totally off topic here. Trying to figure out where I left off. Let's see. So right here, okay, Seneca is saying, it's quoting, when then you ask is the reason? Is it copying nature and what? You say is the greatest good that man can possess? Is it conduct oneself according to what nature wills? There is no doubt, says the objector, that peace affords more happiness when it has not been assailed than when it has been covered cost greater. Okay, I think I read this. Yes. Yeah, it's just like I'm repeating myself here, but yeah, what doesn't kill you, because it could kill you. Like I said, the wing test that Boeing does in the aircraft is, you know, if you try to test that on a plane that goes into commercial service, it'll kill people because it's been bent too much. And that's not a case where what doesn't kill you strengthens you. But what does strengthen though is the design, the overall structural design. When they do that test, they can verify if the structure is satisfactory for survival. And so for the individual aircraft, it's a fatal test. It's a destructive test. Just like that bird that died in my yard. Just it was a destructive test on the poor bird that's no longer operating anymore. It's in the uh, graveyard of dead birds. Yeah, there's a tree back there. Huh. Uh, it reminds me of some other birds that I feel responsible for. I'm not gonna go there right now, but suffering. So Seneca says, by no means for things that result with hazard admit the wide distinctions since they are rated according to the usefulness in the eyes of those who experience them, but with regard to goods, the only point to be considered is that they are in agreement with nature, and this is equal in the case of all goods. All in accord with nature, and I make it with regard to goods also. They are all in accord with nature. One man dies young, another in old age, and still another in infancy. Having enjoyed nothing more than a mere glimpse out of life, they have also been equally subject to death, even though death has permitted the one to proceed farther along the pathway of life, has cut off the life of the second in its flower, and has broken off the life of the third at its very beginning. Some get the release at the dinner table, others extend their sleep into the sleep of death. Some are blotted out during dissipation. Now contrast these persons, individuals who have been pierced by a sword or bitten to death by snakes. I almost got bitten to death by a snake. Or crushed in ruins or tortured piecemeal out of existence. I almost got crushed too by a dust in a cave. Uh, some of the departures may be regarded as better, some as worse, but the act of dying is equal in all. The methods of ending life are different, but the end is one and the same. Death has no degrees of greater or less, for it has the same limit in all instances, the finishing of life. Um, I would also extend this beyond. I mean, there's also a life that hasn't even happened yet. It's like, or you could say that someone dies because two people don't fuck each other. I mean, that's technically could be accurate because if you don't have a man and woman fuck each other and they don't have a kid, then it's almost like a death because it just didn't happen. So that's another way to look at this. Uh, uh, So yeah, it's just Seneca's just saying it's all according to nature. In the Eastern philosophy, this would be like the way, the idea of the way, which is just the way the universe is, or is. Common saying is it is what it is, as all things are. Um, Teaching acceptance. Okay, so this next keynote here, the same thing holds true, I assure you, concerning goods. You'll find one amid circumstances of pure pleasure, another amid sorrow and bitterness. The one controls the favors of fortune, the other overcomes her onslaughts. Each is equally a good, although the one travels a level and easy road, and the other a rough road. And the end of them all is the same. They are goods, they are worthy of praise, they accompany virtue and reason. Virtue makes all the things that acknowledges equal to one another. You need not wonder that this is one of our principles we find mentioned in the works of Epicurus. Two goods of which is supreme good or blessedness is composed, namely, a body free from pain and a soul free from disturbance. The body is, let us suppose, free from pain. What increase can there be to this absence of pain? The soul is composed in calm. What increase can there be to this tranquility? Just as fair weather purified into the purest brilliancy does not emit a still greater degree of clearness, so when a man takes care of his body and of his soul, weaving the texture of his good from both, his condition is perfect. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Okay, I like to try to where I mark little marks on the side here is kind of what I need to focus on. It's from my perspective. The kind of resignation in times of ill health and serious suffering to which I alluded a moment ago, in which Epicurus displayed in that last and most blessed day of his life, for he tells us that he had to endure excruciating agony from diseased bladder and from an ulcerated stomach so acute that it permitted no increase of pain. And yet he says that that day was none the less happy, and no man can spend such a day in happiness unless he is possesses a supreme good. Then Seneca goes on, we cannot say that the good that which has rounded out a happy life, the good for which Epicurus rendered thanks in the last word he uttered, is not equal to the greatest. It is more of an accomplishment to break one's way through difficulties than to keep joy within bounds. It requires the same use of reason, I am fully aware, for a man to endure prosperity will, and also to endure misfortune bravely. That man may be just as brave who sleeps in front of the ramparts without fear of danger when no enemy attacks the camp, as a man who, when the tendons of his legs have been severed, holds himself up to his knees, and does not let fall his weapons, but it is to the blood-stained soldier returned from the front that men cry, well done thou, hero, and therefore I should bestow greater praise upon those goods that stood trial and show courage and have fought it out with fortune. Should I hesitate whether to give greater praise to the maimed and shivered hand of Mucius than to the uninjured hand of the bravest man in the world? There stood Mucius, despising the enemy and despising the fire, and watched his hand as it dripped blood over the fire of his enemy's altar, until Porcina, envying the fame of the hero whose punishment he was advocating, ordered the fire to be removed against the will of the victim. So yeah, this is the guy put his hand in the fire, and it's like I guess he had uh, so much control over his pain and suffering that he was able to not to. I mean, I guess the person torturing him thought he was like almost inhuman or something. It's interesting. But I hope no one has to go through that anything like that. I would not want anybody to go through that. Not even my enemies, if I have any enemies. Okay, so this last key area I highlighted. Why should I not reckon this good among the primary goods and deem it in so far greater than those other goods which are unattended by danger and have made no trial of fortune? As it is a rarer thing to have overcome a foe with a hand lost than with a hand armed. What then, you say, shall you desire this good for yourself? Of course I shall, for this is a thing that a man cannot achieve unless he can also desire it. So you desire instead to be allowed to stretch out my limbs for my slaves to massage, or to have a woman or a man changed into the likeness of a woman pull my fingers' joints? I cannot help believing that Mucius was all the more lucky because he manipulated the flames as calmly as if he were holding out his hand to the manipulator. He had wiped out all his previous mistakes. He finished the war unarmed and maimed, and with the stump of a hand, he conquered 2 kings. Interesting. I guess it'd be interesting to learn more about this guy Mucius. I want to call him Mucus. It sounds like Mucus. Mucius. Mucius. I don't know how to pronounce his name. But he's known for thousands of years, I guess, in the future from when he died, sticking his hand in the fire. Crazy. Okay. Uh, so here's one of the I highlighted some of the footnotes. God being defined as absolute truth and destiny, deity. It's like, the evidence of the senses is only a stepping stone to higher ideas. It's Epicurean tenet. So yeah, it's just like we have our basic senses, and then we have our fear, our pain, and suffering, which I look at as it's really just gauges. They're the rough gauges that you need to observe. Don't run away from. Don't look away. It's how you kind of be stoic. It seems like others are extinguished during sex. Now this is keynote number 6. I was trying to figure out what the fuck that was, but it's like 6. Uh, Reason, however, is nothing else than a portion of the divine spirit set in the human body. I have no idea where they got that footnote. Maybe somebody's fucking around in Wikipedia or in this wiki source. I don't know. So I don't know how accurate this is. I mean, it's interesting, but okay. So let's go on to the next letter. I've already spent over an hour. Oops, over an hour on the letter 66. Okay, so this one's on ill health and endurance of suffering, just like the last one. It's kind of like endurance of suffering too. Seneca says, "I spend most of my time bundled up, and I thank old age for keeping me fastened to my bed. Why should I not thank old age on this account, that which I ought not to wish to do, I lack the ability to do? Most of my converse is with books. Whenever your letters arrive, I imagine that I am with you, and I have a feeling that I am about to speak my answer. Instead of writing it, therefore, let us together investigate the nature of this problem of yours. This is just as if we were conversing with each other. You say it is a good to be brave under torture, to go to the stake with a stout heart, to endure illness with resignation. It follows that these things are desirable, but I do not see that any of them is worth praying for. At any rate, I have as yet known no man who has paid a vow by reason of having been cut to pieces by the rod, or twisted out of shape by the grout, or made taller by the rack. I should prefer to be free from torture, but if the time comes when it must be endured, okay, I lost my place here. Just imagine. You can fast forward here in the video if you want. I should prefer. Okay, of course. Honor, okay, must be endured. I shall desire that I may conduct myself therein with bravery, honor, and courage. Of course, I prefer that war should not occur, but if war does occur, I shall desire that I may nobly endure the wounds, the starvation, and all that the exigency of war brings, nor am I so mad as to crave illness, but if I must suffer illness, I shall desire that I may do nothing which shows lack of restraint, nothing that is unmanly. The conclusion is not that hardships are desirable, but that virtue is desirable, which enables us patiently to endure hardships. Yeah, so like I say, it's just you got to transcend the paradox. Paradox of joy versus torture. It's not easy. Much easier said than done. Uh, but if you don't have a choice, you might as well do it. Like if you're suffering, feeling some kind of pain, just embrace it. Say amor fati, which means a love fate, or lentus amor, tough love. Um, but don't run away from it. Try to understand it. Curiosity. Maybe tell a joke if you can. If you can tell a joke in the worst situation, that shows you have power. Uh, okay, so let's go down here. When one endures torture bravely, one is using all the virtues endurance. It perhaps be the only virtue that it is on view and most manifest, but bravery is there too, and endurance and resignation and long suffering are its branches. There too is foresight, for without foresight no plan can be undertaken. It is foresight that advises one to bear as bravely as possible the things one cannot avoid. Yeah, this goes back to like the Deep Survivor book series. It's just stop thinking, observing, and plan. Stop or stabilize, think, observe, and plan. Um, then action. Act out in your plan and make your plan adaptive and have backup plans. All right. So next keynote here, our friend Demetrius, who calls an easy existence untroubled by attacks of fortune, a dead sea. If you have nothing to stir you up and rouse you to action, nothing will which will test your resolution by its threats and hostilities. If you recline in unshaken comfort, it is not tranquility; it is merely a flat calm. The Stoics Attalus was wont to say, "I should prefer that fortune keep me in her camp rather than in her lap of luxury. If I'm tortured but bear it bravely, all is well. If I die but I die bravely, it is also well." Listen to Epicurus; he will tell you that it is actually pleasant. I myself should never apply an effeminate word to an act so honorably and austere. If I go to stake, I shall go unbeaten. Why should I not regard this as desirable, not because the fire burns me, but because it does not overcome me? Nothing is more excellent or more beautiful than virtue. Whatever we do in obedience to her orders is both good and desirable. And it still reminds me of a quote of like a smooth sea. A smooth sea never made a skilled sailor, or and also like we do these things not because they're easy, because they're hard, but because they're hard. Those are Stoic quotes. Um, kind of like when I go sailing, I want to try to go sailing when the wind is higher, to a point, based on my level of experience. Okay, so um, but the more times I go sailing at the higher winds, the more I learn. You don't want to jump too high too quickly, but you want to get up. You want to get up to the high winds to where you love what you're doing, even though it's hard and it's not comfortable and it's kind of torturous. It's not pleasant. And it's not easy to go through. So you got to try to figure that out and try to build yourself up to those higher winds uh, within reason. And so that's one of the reasons, like when I watch other sailing channel videos, I have a stronger. I mean, I like to watch the the videos in the high wind situations, because this at least gives you a little bit of an opportunity to try to understand how people handle it. Though you know, it's totally different though when you're actually in a boat in a high wind than just watching a video. But I know that there's things that you can learn when watching how other people handle certain situations. They're especially they're above your skill level. But yeah, I think it's good to take small steps. Don't want to just take a giant leap all at once. You want to take small steps when you sail. So okay, that's that letter. I got one more letter left here, and not much time. So this one's not too long of a letter, but obviously you can see I've highlighted a lot more than I probably should have. But so this is on wisdom and retirement. So there's quite a few letters on retirement, which is interesting. So this might be, I mean, I think Seneca's fairly old, but all depends on how what you define old is. But when he's writing these letters, okay. So Seneca says, "I fall in with your plan, retire and conceal yourself in repose, but at the same time conceal your retirement. Also, in doing this, you may be sure that you will be following the example of the Stoics, if not their precept. But you'll be acting according to their precept also. You will just thus satisfy both yourself and any Stoic you please. We Stoics do not urge men to take up public life in every case, or at all times, or without any qualification." So in this keynote number one, or this footnote that is in here is kind of interesting. I noted this. Stoicism preached world citizenship, and this was interpreted in various ways at different points. Greek teachers saw it as an opportunity for wider culture. The Romans a more practical reason. For further discussion of this topic, see 23. I haven't read any of other Seneca's works, but okay. So besides, when we have assigned to our wise man that feel the public life which is worthy of him, in other words, the universe, he is then not apart from public life, even if he withdraws. Nay, perhaps he has abandoned only one little corner thereof, and has passed over into greater and wider regions. And when he has been set in the heavens, he understands how lowly was the place in which he sat when he mounted the curule chair of the judgment seat. Lay this to heart, that the wise man is never more active in affairs than when things divine as well as things human have come within his ken. I now return to the advice which I set out to give you, that you keep your retirement in the background. There's no need to fasten a placard upon yourself with the words philosopher and quietist. Quietist. Give your purpose some other name. Call it ill health and bodily weakness or mere laziness. To boast of our retirement is but idle self-seeking. Certain animals hide themselves from discovery by confusing the marks of their footprints in the neighborhood of their lairs. You should do the same. Otherwise, there will always be someone dogging your footsteps. Kind of reminds me of surveillance capitalism. Many men, which is another book. Uh, it's a thick book, it's like this thick. It's a good book though. People can buy your emails, get access to all your electronic information. Maybe pay about $300 and see everything you've done, all the calls you made, all the text messages, all your emails, everything for about $300. Actually, the price is probably going up now, so they can manipulate people, and manipulate your lives because they know everything about you. It's a great book to read. I highly recommend. I'll put it in the comments below. A link to surveillance capitalism. So you can read that if you want to. If you got the time, if you make the time, not if you don't have the time, you make the time. If you're serious about it, you make the time. Um, so that's kind of what Seneca is saying here is like, yeah, dogging your footsteps. In this modern world that we're living in, it's like everybody is very vulnerable. You think anything you have is electronic is private, you better not forget that. Fucking forget that because everything you do electronic is totally accessible. I don't care how smart you think your computer security system is or your firewall or whatever the fuck you have. It's too easy to hack in. I mean, just like throwing a brick through a window. That's how you get access. I mean, so it's just thanks to NSA for U.S. government for putting all kinds of backdoors in. It's ridiculous. But anyways, dogging your footsteps. If you saw my sovereign individual series, I talked about uh, cryptography. How the keys, basically what they did is they hijacked the keys. Basically, they put equations on the keys so you can get access to all the security keys, just by kind of guessing, interpolating on the equation, and so you can get access to everybody's information. And so it's like real easy. And it's a backdoor, but it's like so if you're using the standard encryption, standard keys written by some corporation, you probably don't have security. You just have false sense of security. And so in today's world, you really need open source code, open source hardware for true security. But we're generally not in that situation right now. So what we have is potentially totalitarianism, totalitarian regimes, a high potential for dystopia if we don't have open source hardware, open source software, pretty much open source everything. And the nature of capitalism is against open source because open source is freely distributed technology, pretty much. Because you may make a donation or you make a contribution by improving it, but it's all open to everybody, so everybody can see, what it is. So, yeah. So many men pass by that which is visible and peer after things hidden and concealed. So you probably look at my mask and, oh, why is this guy wearing a mask? It could be like Trump. I don't wear a mask. I wear a mask. I look at it as like I wouldn't have started this blog if I couldn't wear a mask, at least be somewhat partially abnormal or normal or whatever. During the pandemic, it's like, yeah, you go to a store, you wear a mask. Uh, but I want to have a little bit of privacy. I know that I don't have privacy because I know Google knows exactly who I am. They, of course, wanted my phone number for everything, and so they try to identify me. And I'd rather be a little bit anonymous, but just because when you connect to the internet, you connect to the whole world. So you get the whole distribution of 8 billion people, and there's going to be, most people are good, okay? But when you connect to the internet, you get access to all the psychopathic murderers and the killers out of this end of the spectrum, and, so you have to deal with that whole spectrum. And so that's why I prefer to be a little bit anonymous. And so I wear a mask, not just because of a virus, not just because of a pandemic, but like I said, if there's 30 days and no new cases, I'll gladly take off my mask and show my lower face. But yeah, Mr. Trump's got COVID now. You can congratulate himself for not wearing a mask, and he can be muscle man and say, hey, yeah, get what you get. It's like it's like the same person drives drunk. You get what you get. It's like, well, actually, sometimes not always justice. Sometimes drunk drivers kill innocent people, which is a whole other problem. But karma does kind of there. I mean, if you believe in karma, there is some karma for Trump not wearing a mask. He's probably going to survive. I think there's a good chance he'll survive, but there's still a possibility he could die. 4% fatality rate. So it's kind of you ask this question: Will you go up an airplane with a 4% probability of a fatal crash? Well, if you go up an airplane, uh, say 86 times on 86 flights, you probably have no problem. Maybe. But after the 87th time, you're rolling dice. So it's like every time you go and you roll a dice, it's kind of like you're gambling. And nature always wins. Nature is the house. So in the end, nature is going to win. And so what happens is the dice rolls on the three sixes or whatever you want to call it, and you end up being that 4% that die. So just like if you swim with the sharks all the time, eventually you're going to come across a hungry shark and it's going to bite your leg off. And so probably don't want to do that all the time. You could do it like 10, 20 times, but you carry a spear at least, maybe lowers your chance of getting killed by a shark because at least you can, spear the shark. But yeah, it's just all life is a gamble, and we all take different gambles, different risks, and people want to be macho, and you can see all those gravestones, people flying with. You can see those like videos of guys flying with the wings, just little wings, and then they smash their body into a wall from because a little bit of wind. Uh, I'm gonna put that in the comments below. I'll probably show you a pretty gruesome video, but only for non-sensitive adults. Uh, I've seen two videos of this nature. At least, yeah, I think one of them. Well, yeah, one of them guy hits a bridge. Okay, because he's just trying to look macho like Trump. It's like, I could do anything. I'm macho. Just Darwin selection right there. But of course, Trump's already had kids, so I guess he can do whatever he wants to. But if you're really young, a lot of the young people die because they just think that they can do anything. Um, I mean, our culture kind of like likes brave people, which I understand because it's like you want sacrificial soldiers for your village. Uh, so I hope he survives, but yeah, I'm getting off track here. Otherwise, there'll always be someone dogging. Okay, many men pass by that which is visible and pure after things hidden and concealed. They lock the room and bites a thief. Things which lie open and appear cheap. The housebreaker passes by that which is exposed to view. I've seen so many people who've like broken into people's houses and they just get shot and killed because they're stupid and they break into the wrong house. you know, it's like that's another thing of Darwin's law. It's like the thief may have broken into like 100 houses. No, the 99 houses didn't have weren't gun owners, and the 100th house they broke into happened to be a gun owner, and the gun owner kills the guy for breaking the house. Uh, it just people take risks, and sometimes they get what it's the way the court system handles that is it's as a whole. I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not. It's like I don't know. The police officers get away with it with impunity, though. They end up killing a lot of people because they just feel threatened. Even if the person doesn't even have a gun, they kill them because their hand is in a pocket. Uh, Kind of reminds me of the movie. What's the name of it? Falling down. I'll put it in the comments. And yeah, the guy has a squirt gun. And he gets shot and dies in the end. I shouldn't give it away. It's spoiler alert if you watch it. I've already given the movie away, but I'll put in a link if you want to watch it. It's called Falling Down. Um, but uh, but yeah, it's just things which lie open or appear cheap. The open appear. The housebreaker passes by that which is exposed to view. This is the way of the world and the way of all ignorant men. It's not necessarily true because I mean, a lot of times people leave their garage open. Someone goes in and steals stuff. Actually, I should leave my garage open because I got so much crap I like to get rid of. I need somebody to carry it away from me. Now I'm probably gonna get broken into now. But uh, so yeah, there's some truth to that. It's therefore best not to vaunt one's. Okay, this is way. In the way of all ignorant men, they crave to burst in upon hidden things. It is therefore best not to vaunt one's retirement. It is, however, a sort of vaunting to make too much of one's concealment and of one's withdrawal from the sight of men. Yeah. Okay. To advertise one's retirement is to collect a crowd. When you withdraw, that reminds me. It's like I get so many. It's like if you own a For one thing, when you own a property, you don't really own a property. It's like you pay taxes on it. But I'm getting way off topic here. So back to Seneca. When you withdraw from the world, your business is to talk with yourself, not to have men talk about you. But what shall you talk about? Do just what people are fond of doing when they talk about their neighbors. Speak ill of yourself when by yourself, then you will become accustomed both to speak and to hear the truth. Above all, however, ponder that which you come to feel is your greatest weakness. Each man knows best the defects of his own body, and so one relieves his stomach by vomiting. I talked about vomiting earlier. Another props it up by frequent eating, another drains and purges his body by periodic fasting. Now, fasting I try to do regularly, and I want to try to do more. In fact, I want to try to do like a 48-hour fast, or a 2-day fast if I can. Haven't done that yet. I've done it when I'm sick involuntarily, but I want to do it voluntarily because I think it's really good for your health actually to do that long fast and to get fast regularly and consistently. Those whose feet are visited by pain abstain either from wine or from the bath. In general, men who are careless in other respects go out of their way to relieve the disease which frequently afflicts them. So it is with our souls that there are in them certain parts which are, so to speak, on the sick list, and to these parts cure must be applied. Okay, go down here. What would that in earlier days you had been minded to follow this purpose? With that we were not discussing a happy life in plain view of death, but even now let us have no delay, for now we can take the word of experience which tells us there are many superfluous and hostile things. For this we should long since have taken the word of reason. Let us do what men are wont to do when they are late in setting forth and wish to make up for lost time by increasing their speed. Okay. And Seneca says, and when you ask, will that profit you which you do not learn until your departure, and how will it profit you? Precisely in this way that I shall depart a better man. You need not think, however, that any time of life is more fitted to the attainment of a sound mind than that which has gained a victory over itself by many trials and by long and oft repeated regret for past mistakes. And his passions assuaded has reached a state of health. This is indeed the time to have acquired this good. He who has attained wisdom in his old age has attained it by his years. So that's it. We're almost 2 hours here. Fortune support comes from crowds. So Seneca saying, yeah, and crowds are, you have no control over crowds. Of course, Hitler thought he had control over crowds, and there's like a drug high on his brain. Uh, but uh, yeah, if anything external to yourself is has to do with the goddess fortune. Goddess fortune. Okay, so that is it. I hope you're doing well, and like I say, don't forget to wear a mask unless you want to be like Trump and catch COVID. I know one person that's had COVID. I mean, personally. Um, I guess she said that it's not, seems to have had no effect on her, I guess. Actually, I didn't ask more details about it. Um, most people have no symptoms, but I don't even know if I had it. I may have had it in January, if I had it when I was throwing up, or back in November, because one of my friends in Thailand may have given it to me from a meal, from a dinner, uh, with a bunch of other friends. It's like the custom for her was to eat other people's food on the plate and sharing the same, or not sharing the same utensils, but eating each other's dishes. And it's kind of in American culture we don't really do that because we kind of know there's kind of germs transferring there, but kind of an inoculation, depending on what kind of load you get or vaccine. So okay, that's it. It's about 10 p.m. here, Mountain Standard Time. And October 2nd, Halloween's like I miss being a kid when I could go trick or treating. Too old now. I'm wearing a mask though. No candy. No tricks. No treats. Uh, but yeah, Halloween. Actually, I like the haunted houses the most. Haunted doing a haunted house. I helped. It's a fun experience to do that. It's one of my favorite parts of Halloween. And also, like, you just get to be somebody else for a while. I guess that's why that cosplay is like really big. Uh, I think one of my yeah classmates did a cosplay of that I kind of knew. A classmate from Portugal, kind of lost contact with. Um, so so yeah, this is at least the temperature is starting to drop a little bit. At some point, I get to turn this very annoying temperature control system off. Can't get more ambient temperature. Should probably be like about a month, or two, not actually a month. Probably less than a month. So, anyways, Skipper, U.S., like I said, got COVID-19. He doesn't. I think if you ask me, he probably if he wore a mask, he probably wouldn't have it. But he's probably going to survive anyways, most likely. Just like UK Prime Minister, I think it was, or somebody head of Britain. Forgot his name. Uh, he survived, but he had to go to the hospital. They had to put him on oxygen. I think the skipper is in Walter Reed right now hospital. Just you know, till he gets over his corona. Um, like I said, he'll probably be okay, but I can't. There's no guarantee. we're all gonna die. Everybody's gonna die. Just uh, some of us die sooner rather than later. COVID is one of those things that cause people to die a little bit sooner rather than later. Uh, in other words, it's kind of like when you're in a hotel and COVID's like the alarm goes off for checkout because you didn't wear your mask, so you didn't make your mask wake up call, and so you check out 3 a.m. instead of 5 a.m. or 8 a.m. or if you live 120 years, you check out like at 12 midnight the next day or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Uh, Hotel California. I said that in a previous video. Put in the comments. I think I did. Life is like the Hotel California. Uh, check out, or you check in, but you can't check out. No, you can't. Yeah, you do have to check out. Everybody has to check out. Everybody has to check out of the hotel life at some point. Just hope it's later rather than sooner. But just like Marcus Aurelius and Seneca and Boethius, they all kind of meditate on death, and so we're in the month of Halloween. So if I can get through all these letters before the end of the month, it's going to be a bit ambitious, but it took me a long time just to get to this point. It's taken a lot longer than the other books I've gone through. It's funny. It's like I go through some books I go really slow, so other ones go fast. I think if I find an abnormality, like this book, the abnormality is in Seneca's book, this published book, the abnormality is they didn't publish like half his letters. It's like, what the fuck? So that's why I'm going through them. And I don't know how many people have read that, noticed that, and how many of the paper books have the letters missing. So, anyways, I hope you're doing well, and I hope you have a beer for me and have some nice copulation or whatever you do, and be like the bonobos, to win. Uh, you take care. Have a good night. Good morning. Good day.